How's it going, ladies and Bruce? I'm Bobby Sixkilla. Welcome back to Sekimeiya. Now, we left the last episode on a cliffhanger. We're being hunted now by the killer, and they've just discovered us and are taking swings at us again, so let's see how that plays out, shall we? There's a reasonable chance that the last choice I made has brought us to this point and is going to get us killed, but we shall see. The same knife, the same breeze at my side. After leaving the partitions, as if the culprit had teleported behind me, I saw another missed swing that had been incredibly close to taking my life. It happened again, a sudden ambush. Shidoya let out a cry at my side. We didn't stop running, but something had taken my desire to react. That time I'd seen it. The hand that had been gripping the knife, and a wristwatch, sighed. Then, the voice of the person who tried to kill me broke out and resounded through the entire floor. Atsuki, you son of a bitch! Sai's voice echoed in my mind. Without stopping, we turned on our heels, turned our heads to see an enraged expression full of malice. Then his body took off behind us, knife in hand. The chase resumed. Shidoya and I sprinted as fast as we could toward the staircase to floor 3, while the fact that Sai had been the one to try and kill me forced its way into my mind. Why? And why then? His face had made it clear that trying to ask would be our end. However, as soon as I forced my body to move, it rejected my action. I stood where I was. Stood there. I understood there was no way I could run for much longer. The same must have applied for Shidoya. As we headed toward the staircase, I thought of something. Sai's pretty far behind. It's very likely the elevator is still on floor 3, just under the stairs, since Shidoya called it before we were attacked. If it is, this time we could have time to enter it before he can catch us. It's unfeasible. As soon as we got to the lower floor, we could attempt to open the elevator. If Sai had disabled it, it was likely still there. And we concluded that he probably entered the attic through the main door, meaning that the elevator hadn't been up there. It might have been risky, but our bodies were on the verge of giving up, our lives balanced on a knife's edge. Even if Arcado is working with Sai, as long as the elevator is here, that shouldn't be a problem. If Sai's really working with him, what's likely is that Arcado was the one who go to the attic, while Sai waited here to ambush us. The way it happened, I imagine Sai had been hiding inside the first partition, waiting for us to pass by. We began to speed down the stairs, while I tried to decide on what to do. Sai hadn't started to chase us until he yelled my name, which had created enough distance between us to seriously consider the elevator. Despite that, it still felt off. Our attacker had been confirmed to be Sai, who'd proven not to let many things slip by him. The elevator wasn't particularly fast, but most importantly, would he really let us use it? Even though we could outrun him at full speed, trying to open the elevator could have lost us enough time, considering we weren't going to be able to keep running for long. Neither's he, though. Oh man, another choice? Save. Screw it, try the elevator. We should stop the hit the stop button once it's moving. And then it'll be stuck there until the cops come in. So we should be safe until the cops get there. Atsuki and Shidoya lived in a delicate universe. A single modification could collapse the complex structure they were climbing. However, the structure could be partially frozen and then changed. This universe will be frozen, and that will permit its observation. A universe that would collapse if set in motion. Rules have to be bent abstractly. The flow must stop. Only that will allow an impossibility. Ultimately, just before stepping onto the 3rd floor, Atsuki changed his mind. He was exhausted, and at that point the elevator seemed safe. 1 second, I'll try to open the elevator. Shidoya had also been thinking about it, but she hadn't thought that Atsuki would attempt to use it. It was next to the staircase, so it didn't take him long to confirm it. The elevator was still on the 3rd floor, and hadn't been disabled. He opened it, and its empty interior came into their view. Alright, get in. Before Sai could catch them, both of them boarded the elevator. They had enough time to press a button, but that was yet another decision to make. They looked at the panel and decided to touch one of the 8 available buttons. Oh man. Another one. Like I said, my initial idea was to stay in the elevator, so stay in the elevator. Hit the stop button. When Atsuki ran down through all the buttons, he realized there was one he hadn't considered. Above the others, a red button with the word stop immediately grabbed his attention. The stop button. We could be safe if we lock ourselves here. Shidoya's eyes widened in amazement. Both of them had failed to recall its existence. They thought back on Katai's words. He told them if the button was pressed while the elevator was moving, only an entity from outside the tower could enable it again. Before Sai had time to arrive and open the doors, Atsuki rushed to press the floor 4 button. That was solely done to begin motion. since stopping it while stationary might have left the outer button functional. As soon as they departed the third floor, Atsuki pressed the stop button. Without any delay, the whole structure abruptly ceased moving and kept itself suspended between the third and fourth floors. There we go, it worked! Both of them breathed with relief. An inaccessible elevator in the middle of an inaccessible tunnel. They'd reached the safest position within the tower. Like Katai had said, no connection with the outside occurred because it's something the alarm disabled. We'll have to wait until the front door opens to be rescued, but that's more than okay. Shiroya agreed with a faint voice. They knew they had slightly more than 3 hours to go, and the narrow elevator was all the space they had. Deciding to rest as best they could, they put their shoes on and let their bodies drop until they sat on the floor. Yeah, man, let's just chill out for 3 hours. It's not going to be that easy, is it? After the elevator had stopped, not the faintest external sound had been heard. Their bodies were still tired, so despite the long wait, they knew they could wait through it with ease. Leaning on opposite corners, they let their bodies loosen, starting to feel their heartbeats slowing down. Both of them wanted to talk to the other, but didn't do so. Instead, they used their imaginations to explore what they'd do after escaping. Shiroya had been living in Atsuki's house for a week, but they'd never set an end date. She hoped she could stay with them for a bit longer without being a bother. In the meantime, Atsuki's mind kept going to what they talked about hours previously. It had been so long since they'd visited their old cabin that he really felt a strong desire to go back there with her. But he knew that what had been happening around him. He knew that, for some reason, Sai wanted them dead. He somehow acquired a knife and abused the Sekimeiya's powers. It was very unlikely he could reach their position, but depending on his true motives, the chase might have continued even after exiting the tower. After all, it appeared the cameras hadn't been working, and with the aid of the Sekimeiya, Sai could have known how to avoid being caught by the police. Even if they'd outsmarted him once, it was impossible to feel at peace yet. Minutes started to pass. Not a thing had reached their ears, but as they were between 2 floors, it was unlikely even a loud sound could have. Every now and then, they'd raise their heads to check on the other. It was impossible to keep a comfortable position, so they continued slightly adjusting themselves. As soon as Atsuki realized that he was still thirsty, he knew he'd be able to get it out of his. He wouldn't be able to get it out of his mind. He was about to attempt some small talk by saying it, but stopped himself, as it could have made Shiroya feel the same way. A few more minutes went by. Atsuki didn't know how long they'd been in the elevator. Without a watch, and given how tired they were, it was far too difficult to tell. Any range from 10 to 20 minutes seemed possible to him. But a sudden dark atmosphere began to creep up on them. With a broken sense of time, Atsuki remembered one of the most mysterious events they'd experienced. Yeah, well, if we're stuck here for a month, we're dead. They'd listened to a recording that had claimed that the exit would never open, that the alarm's effects would be permanent, but there's no food in this entire place, so either we starve to death in an elevator or out there. When he'd made the rush decision to activate the emergency stop function of the elevator, he hadn't thought of it. If it was legitimate, nobody was going to let them out. When the thought came to him, Atsuki's heart began to speed up again. Had Shiroya thought of it? He couldn't tell her. In less than a minute, the claustrophobic sensation had begun to invade Atsuki's body. Are you okay? Yes, don't worry. Shiroya noticed he'd started to take deeper and faster breaths. Their decision was irreversible, but the process to learn if it had been the correct one was what began to assault Atsuki. Had his finger already sealed their fate? He didn't know how much longer they'd have to wait to find out. Atsuki began to sweat nervously as he imagined the terrifying scenarios they could have already caught themselves in. Better to sit here and starve to death than get knifed out there. How long until 9 o'clock? If they could be sure that that point in time would mark the end of their suffering, reaching it wouldn't be an issue. As soon as Atsuki had thought of the not unlikely worst scenario though, every second had begun to feel unbearable. Would they die inside the elevator if help never came? It should have been impossible after all. If the recording was legitimate, and they'd spent a month in the tower, it must also be true that Atsuki would survive until it occurred. However, what about Shiroya? She hadn't been mentioned in it. Atsuki was used to feeling betrayed by his own mind. Shiroya had been wearing a neutral expression, but if in 3 hours nothing happened, what would it morph into? Would he be the only one to survive it after seeing his friend deteriorate? The rational part of him denied it. There was no food anywhere, and none of them could survive for so long, yet he couldn't relieve any of his worries. He stood up and stretched his body as much as he could, maintaining the verbal silence. He sat back down. His mind begged for noise, the lack of anything else happening driving him mad. He wasn't sure how much longer they had to wait for. Perhaps they'd been inside for half an hour. As much as he wanted the time to pass, he knew an inevitable time would come. almost 9 o'clock. The uncertain period of time in which nothing would be known. Was it past 9 o'clock? And they were already doomed? Was the way out about to unlock? How could they know? If it was truly never going to open, when would they know it? Would they have to wait for 6 hours before being sure that their perception of time hadn't shattered? He didn't know what to think. Nearby, Sai might have been trying to find a way to kill them. Could it be that he wouldn't let the exit open precisely to achieve that? The tendency Atsuki had to overthink everything made for the perfect paranoid mind. Beyond everything, thinking about a reality in which they'd be trapped there forever, sharing a long and agonizing end, while he could only blame himself, was the most petrifying conclusion he could imagine. And it wouldn't occur. He'd spent the past few minutes with his eyes closed, when he opened them after a sudden noise. What? He looked up. The knife had been stabbed into his chest, one gripped by a hand. When it was taken out, blood began to pour out of him, wetting his shirt. A cold and simultaneously hot pain invaded his whole torso. He couldn't comprehend what had happened, and looked at the blood in disbelief. Then his gaze turned to Shidoya's expression. It was one he'd never seen on her. His mind fell into disarray as he frantically looked around the cramped space. He couldn't believe what he was seeing. The situation was so laughable that he couldn't bring himself to scream or utter a word. Flickering shreds of sound began to fill his ears while his sight blackened. No. Why? Those words echoed within himself, unable to be released. He opened his eyes to confirm it one more time. Indeed, what he saw was a senseless nightmare. Every scenario he'd thought of had been erased. Atsuki felt disconnected from reality, as if his body had been hijacked. Without the strength to resist, he gave out on keeping hold of himself. As soon as he collapsed to the ground, his consciousness burst like a bubble. Personal paradox. Did Shidoya just kill us? Is that what just happened? I get the feeling that's what happened. Well, shit. We got the bad ending. Alright, we're gonna jump back one save point and change our decision? Oh, we didn't even have to. The game does it for us. Thanks, game. Continue running down. That's nice of the game, isn't it? Entering the elevator was too risky. That was my final conclusion. There was no way Sai hadn't prepared for it. We set foot on the 3rd floor. I glanced at my right and saw the shut elevator. That meant it probably hadn't been disabled. Giving off a further feeling of a trap, I saw the bathrooms again as well. We had the opportunity to lock ourselves up in one, but I doubted the inner lock would be able to withstand the force of someone turning a key from the outside. Ignoring both options, we continued running forward. Sai had probably been waiting for us inside the first partition of the previous floor, so running next to them was hair-raising. Behind us, Sai's noisy attempts to catching up began to be heard across the whole floor. We'd put the distance between us to good use. When we arrived on the 2nd floor, my limbs began to tremble, pushed harder than I had ever expected. Well, you should probably go to the event room, just to see if the Sekimeiya is still there. Shidoya didn't react to my words, but we continued to make our way through the floor. There was another reason why the event room had to be our target, if Sai was our only attacker. For as long as we circled in and out of it, we couldn't be caught. Of course, we couldn't do that for the remaining 3 hours, but it was better than putting ourselves in a corner. The final staircase was just ahead of us. We'd begun to slow down, but Sai hadn't been able to close the gap between us. We could hear his footsteps still descending the previous flights of stairs. When we crossed the door in the middle of the staircase, we saw the floor of hallway A. Without hesitating, we kept running toward the door in the middle. There was another drop of blood on the floor of hallway C. What? It looked recent too. Had someone been occasionally bleeding small drops for 2 hours? I had no time to wonder about it as I pushed open the door in front of us. In the dark room, the covered cabinet appeared camouflaged by the walls. Drawn by its overwhelming aura, I grabbed the bottom of the curtain and lifted it. Really? What do we do? The Sekimeiya was behind the glass. Neither the mysterious Shidoya nor Sai had taken it. I tried to open it, but which confirmed that our lock was still in effect. Only the key would deliver the Sekimeiya back to us, and Akira or Sai must have had it. And even though another Sekimeiya might have existed, there was no guarantee. We can't keep running away forever, but there's no safe place. I froze trying to think, but my nerves prevented me from doing so. There was nothing we could do but keep running to escape from Sai. Another Sekimeiya could be somewhere, but we can't enter any of the rooms to find it, or we could be backing ourselves into a dead end. The intense sound of Sai's footsteps hadn't been audible since we'd arrived on the crystal floor. Let's go. I don't know where, but we should at least be in the hallway to anticipate him better. The hallway B door hadn't been closed. We rushed to it, but our thoughtless actions immediately proved to be fatal. Meaning? There we go. You two are really starting to tire me out. As soon as we tried to leave, Sai's body collided with mine at full speed. I was knocked down and fell by his feet. When his terrifying voice made me look up, I saw the knife we'd been running from pointing towards me and close to my face. Sai, what the fuck are you doing? I knew I couldn't run away. Behind me, I could feel Shiroya's trembling legs. She could still have made an escape. But the shaking she transmitted through my back crushed that hope. Tell me, Atsuki, what do you think I'm doing? His face shifted into an unsettling smile while he slowly brought the knife closer to me. Please stop. Why do you want to kill us? Us? Don't worry, I was only chasing Atsuki. Atsuki, I'm not going to be the one to kill you. Do you mean someone else will? Precisely. Shut the fuck up, there's no way she'll die. Oh, I guess you haven't seen it. I thought for sure you had. What? Let me make it clear for you. Shiroya's fate is death. She is close to dying, and I will be the cause behind it if I have to be. Unfortunately, you won't get to see it. You brought this upon yourself for being so fucking stupid. The knife seemed to grow bigger as it approached me. Was I truly about to die? Without understanding anything in this pathetic position? Wait, stop! Tell me at least, why do you want to kill me? I started to use my arms to drag myself backwards. Sai followed my movements with his knife, his expression growing lost. Answer me! No, just let him go, he hasn't done anything. You stay right there. For the first time, Sai's voice wavered. Why? Did he realize something? Then he stared at my eyes with the most incensed and serious expression I'd seen on him. I'll ask again, why do you think? I don't know, that's why I'm asking. I continued to move back, and he stopped following me. When I'd separated myself from him, I stood up, but I couldn't run away. I'd gotten into the corner of the room, so trying to escape could have been a huge mistake. Are you okay? I nodded uncertainly. Keeping her eyes on Sai, she walked up to me, giving up on her easy way out. Sai's words had made it sound as if he didn't present a direct threat to Shiroya, so I didn't immediately tell her to stop. When I looked at Sai with a clearer mind, I saw something of importance that stood out. There was a bit of blood in his mouth. Immediately, I associated it with the drops we found. Why is your mouth bleeding? When did that happen? After looking down for a few seconds, he lifted his head back up, showing that his imposing expression hadn't faded away. Are you laughing at me? What? No, why? To answer your question, not more than 30 minutes ago. Oh? Was that supposed to mean something? The way he said it made it sound like a hidden meaning had been behind those words. I thought you might have left some blood behind, like that drop, for example. I pointed at the floor, where the fully dried up drop was. I don't know where that came from, but it's not mine. It's been there for longer than 30 minutes. I thought so. Did you stop trying to kill me? I don't understand what you're doing. Shut up. Unable to feel relieved yet, Shiroya and I looked at each other. Had Sai been trying to kill me for something he thought I'd done? His murderous aura had previously seemed incredibly determined, but had greatly faded in response to a few confused words. He looked pensive out of nowhere and glanced around the room. Suddenly, in visible shock, his whole body went one step backward. Did something happen? Atsuki, tell me something. What time do you think it is? Right now, it should be around 5:40? You're right, my watch says it's 5:41, and I'm sure it's correct. Does that tell you anything? I suppose so, but I'm not sure what. What the fuck? Did he think I'd say an incorrect time? Do you know where Akudo is? That son of a bitch? No idea. Did something happen between you two? You escaped the bedroom together. How did you do it? Try to figure it out yourself. Telling you of anything of what I've concluded wouldn't be smart. I don't think Akudo is with us anymore though. He might have escaped. What? Using the Sekimeiya? Yes, most likely. A few minutes after you two left, Akudo came back to the bedroom. Excuse me? Yes, he said he didn't remember having left it, but he disappeared again without unsetting the chain. What the fuck? Don't tell me you believed him. I knew he could try to enter the storeroom door, but I had it guarded I haven't guarded it the entire time. You think he entered from the outside after having escaped? Still, he vanished and the Sekimeiya is still here. Show me. Shiroya went ahead and raised the curtain, which had fallen by itself at some point. As we'd seen, the Sekimeiya was behind the glass. Did you two put it inside? Yeah, a long while ago. Was it in the furthest back room in hallway B? B6? Yeah. I thought about it again. The origin of that Sekimeiya didn't make sense. We found it inside the drawer of a cabinet. Where? At first it was on the floor, we used it, but when we came back we couldn't find it, then we found it inside a drawer in the same room. Huh, I see. It teleported you there after you used it. I get it. How did you know we found it in that room? I just remembered that it could have been there. Now let me pass. What? Move away. Do you want the Sekimeiya? Do you have the key? Shut up and move away. I couldn't decipher his intent. Well, he's got a knife, so he might as well just shut up and move away, I guess. His voice had changed completely. It sounded as if we were the present threat instead of him, keeping him away from the Sekimeiya. You just wanted to kill me. Why would we let you use the Sekimeiya? Are you really this dense? I have a knife. That's a fair point. Will you kill us if we don't step aside? Yes. No determination was put into that threat. For some reason his murderous voice and expression had gone away. Where'd you even get that knife? Did you kill Katai and Editor? No, I haven't killed anyone. Don't lie, you have a knife which must have been used to kill Editor. You're trying to trick us, aren't you? You used the Sekimeiya to escape the tower and then you entered again through the storeroom with that knife you brought from the outside. You travelled from hallway B room, which is how you knew that we'd find the Sekimeiya there. The state we saw Arcado in. Was it your doing? Regarding where I found this knife, I just did. I'm not going to tell you where, but I found it inside this building, poorly hidden. What? You mean to tell us that we never found it before? Listen, here's a good question for you. I've seen Katai's and Editor's corpses. If I'd killed them, how come there's no blood on my clothes? I was taken aback. He was right. Blood would have splashed onto the killer's clothes after killing both of them. Its eyes were completely clean. Suddenly, a needle pierced my heart when I remembered something. The Shinoya who'd changed clothes. That doesn't mean anything. If you used the Sekimeiya to travel back in time, after you killed them, a point at which your clothes were still clean would have been reconstructed and the stained ones would have disappeared forever. She's right. You could have easily gotten rid of them like that. Heh, that's wrong. What is? What you two just said is wrong. However, I didn't have to get rid of any clothes, as I didn't kill anyone. What exactly are we wrong about? As I said before, telling you anything wouldn't be smart. Were we wrong? About what? His clothes still had very vague traces of smoke on them. If he travelled from outside the tower and then entered from the storeroom, there would have been no smoke on them. Was that wrong as well? I didn't know how to object. After Katai and Edna died, it was unlikely anyone had activated the Sekimeiya. How had it happened inside the drawer? How had it appeared inside the drawer, sorry? Either it had teleported there, or someone had left it inside. Going off the clumsily shut drawer, the latter sounded more plausible. However, the drawer had still been shut, so nobody could have travelled after leaving the Sekimeiya there. The window for that explanation was very tight. It had to have happened before that point, or after the present time, if the side we're talking to was the result of a travel that hadn't yet happened. In addition, we couldn't rule out the possibility that the Sekimeiya had been taken out of the cabinet, used and placed back inside. Anyway, I wouldn't want to kill you two now, since there's more stuff I'd want to think about. I'd still get out of my way if I were you though. You definitely have the key for the cabinet, right? You took it from the bedroom before escaping. Does that mean Arcado never had it? It doesn't sound as if you two have a great relationship, despite you leaving together. Atsuki, overcome your stupidity and move. Do you want to put her in danger? I don't want to move either. Giving the Sekimeiya to you can't be a good idea no matter what. But I have a knife, for the love of God. You were running and scared out of your minds before. Where'd your balls come from? At this point, I'm pretty sure you don't intend to use it. Sai's lips curved into a grin. Then he kneeled and left the knife on the floor. Alright, let's play your game then. What game? You two don't understand anything. You think you do, and it's laughable. Right, I don't want to use my knife because overpowering you physically right now would be a loss. I'll have to go one step further and show you how pathetic your resistance is. Without abandoning his unsettling grin, he dashed out of the room toward hallway B. Huh? I didn't understand anything, but Sai had a plan. Given what had happened the previous time, I hesitated to chase after him, but I immediately realized that was a mistake. To prevent him from running out of our sight, I sprinted toward the door and glanced at the hallway. Before I got there, the loud noise of a door being slammed invaded the entire hallway. When I finally looked, I saw a bunch of closed doors with no indication of which one had created the noise. He's definitely inside one of them. Now he had time to get to hallway C or the lobby. Going off his words, I would have thought he created that noise to lure us out and make us think that he was still in the hallway. But that couldn't be it. The brief window of time he'd had meant that he was definitely in one of the rooms. He must think we'll search for him, but he has something in mind. Do you want this just in case? Shiroi had picked up the knife from the floor. I understood her proposition, but I declined it. If he wanted to harm us, he would have done so just now. He wants to trick us somehow. But how? He's in one of the rooms, so how would we be able to do anything? His goal was clearly to open the Sekimeiya's cabinet, so there's a very simple way. It seems he understands how the Sekimeiya works better than us, and it's still possible another one exists. If he entered the room where he knew the other Sekimeiya was, he could have gone back to the past. Maybe he thought both of us would chase behind him, and he could immediately enter the event room from hallway A. And that's why it should be fine if you stay here. Looking at the hallway, I'll open the doors while you make sure Sai doesn't leave and nobody enters from the other side. She walked back and closed the hallway A door, making any sudden arrival much slower. Then she nodded, knowing we couldn't just ignore him. Be careful though. He dropped the knife so that we'll follow him, knowing that we'd never do that if he still had it. He sounded pretty confident, and knowing Sai, he's got some plan. I know. I'll be careful, but he still has to be here. It's important that we find him. Even though he gave it to us, we have his knife. If we can find him, we can keep him in one place until we're out of here. She agreed. I stepped out of the room, glancing around me as I put my shoes on. One of the closed doors had hid Sai behind it. I was sure about that. Given the short time he'd had, it was also likely that he hadn't gone to any room on the extremes of the hallway. However, I started with those. On full alert, I turned the doorknob of the cleaning room and pushed the door open. The empty space came into view, still missing the cart that used to occupy much of it. I knew he could have used the Sekimeiya to escape, so I briefly searched around for it. There were some hidden shelves and buckets, but I doubted something as big as the Sekimeiya could have been hidden. However, before giving up, I saw something. On the top shelf there was a key. Surprised, I jumped to grab it. I opened my hand to see a small key I hadn't seen before, so I put it in my pocket. I don't get it. This room has been searched before with the intention of finding the Sekimeiya, right? How come this key was never found? There was no time to wonder that, so I exited as soon as I determined nothing else was hidden out of sight. The room in front of me, B6, was where we'd found the Sekimeiya. I entered it and looked in every cabinet and drawer. All of them were empty. Then, as soon as I set foot into the staff room, I remembered that a complete search couldn't be performed. What if Sai could open one of the lockers? Wait, no, that's fine. They can't be locked from the inside, although they're big enough to contain a person. If Sai had the brilliant idea to hide in one, it must certainly be currently be unlocked. And if he had hidden a Sekimeiya inside one, he must have unlocked it to activate it. That means that after travelling, it would remain unlocked. I had to try to open every single one. The higher compartments and the 3 narrow slits I could barely put my fingers through. I used them to try and drag the doors towards me, sure that they'd open if they were unlocked. One locker open, Naomi's. I knew a coat was inside and I made sure its pockets were empty. After that, no more doors budged. Not here either. Unless he used the Sekimeiya and then it teleported itself away, like he said might have happened earlier. I entered the following crystal room, and after the same quick search, neither Sai nor the Sekimeiya had been found inside. From the event room, Shiroya let me know that nothing had happened on her end. She was looking at hallway B to prevent Sai's escape, while paying very close attention to the door behind her. Perhaps Sai could enter it from it at any time, make it to the cabinet faster than Shiroya, and then overpower her. However, there was no way that that's what he was hoping for, as he'd had the opportunity when he had the knife. Next, I entered room B4. It exuded a sinister aura, exhibiting Naomi and Edina's death. Trying to ignore the sudden heartache, I looked through every cabinet where Sai and the Sekimeiya could have been. As usual, they were all empty. Just 3 more. We have to find something in one of these. I continued by entering the room on the left. At first glance, it was another empty crystal room where nothing of importance had occurred. After I looked through every cabinet, that sensation hadn't changed. Yet again, a few spare gems were all I'd been able to find inside them. Nothing changed in the next one. It was full of uninteresting cabinets storing nothing but air and gemstones. There's only one more. Could it be that we left the right one for the end? Shiroya looked unsure. She was constantly looking behind her, while giving Sai no time to escape to hallway B. I opened the door and stepped into the last crystal room. Nothing appeared different from the others. To prevent a sudden attack, I'd been getting used to immediately looking behind the doors. That first step was completed without an issue. Those cabinets were the single remaining places where Sai could have been. Starting from the right ones, I uncovered their lids one by one, progressively narrowing down the last options. As I opened the last one, it was finally confirmed. Sai hadn't been anywhere. Feeling defeated, I went back to hallway B and rejoined Shiroya. I don't get it. There's not much he could have done. He said the Sekimeiya could teleport itself after being used. That might be why he didn't find it. But, do you think that'd be what he did? I mean, I've searched enough to be sure that he isn't in any of these rooms, but there might be a very good spot I missed where he could have hidden the Sekimeiya. But why would he do that? Is this goal really to get his hands on the Sekimeiya in the cabinet, when he knew where another one was? And was his plan simply to use it? Lure us out while he trusted his hiding spot and into the event room from hallway A? There's no way, right? Probably not. He must have known one of us would stay here. Yeah, he left his knife behind to make us chase after him, but there's no way he thought both of us would. Do you think he might have had time to go to hallway C or the lobby? He wasn't very fast when he was chasing us, and I doubt he faked his speed just for this. I suppose we can't completely rule it out though, but I didn't hear his footsteps in the distance. Whatever side had been planning, we had to stop it. He might have given up on killing us, but nothing guaranteed he hadn't simply held off on it after realizing something. We need to search hallway A, but the lobby and hallway C are a problem. Wait here, watching over this hallway and the other door like you were doing. I'll be back in a second. Okay. I took off toward the lobby. Nobody was there, and I made sure to check that Sai wasn't behind the columns and couch. It was unlikely he decided to hide in the mechanic room, but I had to look. I opened the door and headed down the stairs. It was going to be hard to conclude that nobody was hiding in the provided light, but I had to do it. At least, I felt I didn't have to be scared of sudden physical attacks. After some time, I was able to conclude that nobody was hiding, and I didn't see the Sekimeiya either. I walked back up, knowing what to do next. Instead of joining Shiroya through hallway B, I entered hallway A and opened the door next to the event room. I stared at her. I startled her, but she quickly realized it was me. Wait, don't come over. The lobby's empty, and from here I can see hallway A, the event room, and the other way to the floors. Do what I did from the other side. Check the bathrooms, and come here through hallway A. If you do that, we'll have successfully isolated this hallway, and we'll be able to make sure nobody enters from floor 2. Alright, that's a good idea. She disappeared from view, walking toward hallway C. For some seconds, I did what she'd been doing earlier, keeping track of the event room and the hallway simultaneously. As soon as she disappeared from hallway C, I could stop focusing on the event room, because nobody could have been behind us. I knew not to lower my guard though, given Sai's evident confidence. I saw her trying to open the elevator door, but it wasn't there. Then she sprinted toward me. He wasn't in the bathrooms. I didn't find the Sekimeiya either. So if he's still on this floor, he has to be inside a room in this hallway. We'll do the same thing then. Shiroya came to my side where she would stand while I entered every remaining room. That was until a sound made us turn around. And with that, it's cliffhanger time again. Your favourite time of the day. Time to leave this and wrap it up. In next episode, we're going to find out what made that noise. Presumably Sai, seeing there's very few other people left alive, but we shall see. I feel like we're still on a bad path, but there's no real way to know until we play it out. So I guess we'll find out in due time. Till then, I hope you guys enjoyed it. Thanks for watching. Thanks for hanging out with me, and I'll see you in the next one.